It's a beautiful summer afternoon. Hello, everyone. Greetings. My name is Ashara Ekundayo. I'm an independent curator. I'm a cultural strategist, and I am your host for Blatant. Blatant is an ongoing forum and live zine series on art, joy, and rage that centers the lived experiences and radical imagination of Black women artists and cultural laborers, creating across discipline and geography. Presented as part of our organizational programming at Artist as First Responder, these informal and uncensored layered conversations celebrate the lives of artists whose creative practices heal communities and save lives. So today I'm truly honored to spend some more time with you all and to have the Museum of the African Diaspora as co-presenter for this series. Also want to thank Dr. Elizabeth Gessel for supporting today's conversation and running tech for us. We tend to begin each episode with a video of some sort, and we decided to switch it up this month because we have something special in store for you. We also begin every show with a land acknowledgement. And this happens because we are hosting these conversations from land which is stolen. We know that we walk upon, that we sit upon, that we create upon these sites, and we gather here to create. And so we honor the ancestors and call the names of the people who are the original stewards of this location. Today, I'm greeting you from my chosen home on the unceded land of the Muwekma and Ramatash Ohlone people, now known as Oakland, California. These lands were the traditional birthright and indigenous people who were forcibly removed and have faced centuries of struggle for survival and identity in the wake of dispossession and displacement. And so upon this stolen land, I walk as a visitor with humility and in solidarity with First Nations people and all oppressed people who came before now, who are still here honoring and loving this land and the people. I also honor my African ancestors, offering them gratitude and water for their guidance and protection in this life and in this work. And has also become tradition, part of our opening ceremony is to offer up breath, to offer our deep breath for the newly dead, dead from COVID-19, from cancer, from old age, for all those who have been killed by state-sanctioned violence and because of war. Today's show is dedicated to the people of Cuba who are in the streets fighting for their freedom. We sit honestly with our feelings of loss, grief, anger, and hope and joy. So I want to invite you to take a moment to arrive here, to be present with this breath, be present with who you are and all that you had to accomplish to be here today, to sit in this circle with us for the next hour and a half. So with that, find your body and let's take a breath. I am honored to spend time today with Angela Wellman and Tasha Dougé. Peace, y'all. How you doing? How you be? Where you at? Where's your heart? How's your
I'm good.
Good?
I'm good.
Would you like an acknowledgement?
Angela, would you like to go first?
You got it.
Okay, so greetings and peace to everyone. My name is Tasha Dougé. I am a visual performance artist and I'm coming to y'all by way of my Haitian parents. But right now I'm currently coming to you on unceded land of the Munsee Lenape people in Astoria. But I rep my borough very hard, the Boogie Down Bronx.
All right. Boogie Down Bronx. I love that. Yeah, so I'm coming to you from the unceded land of the Ohlone people here in Oakland, California. Since we repping our boogie down land, I'm straight from the heart of America, Kansas City, Missouri, not Kansas, Missouri, and that there's some meaning in that. So yeah, that's where I'm at, and glad to be here.
Yes, that's what's up. Okay. Well, I'm gonna be on my what up though and rep my town of Detroit today as well, and just shouting out to all of the beautiful people who are joining us from around
Yes.
the region, around the country, and from wherever you're watching from. My first question today is, how's your heart? How are you feeling today? There's so much going on. Let's just, three Black women like in our space, and so much still being required of us psychically, emotionally, literally, physically. Tasha, how's your heart?
So my heart is pumping in many different directions, right? I am first generation Haitian American. So, I might be here, but my thoughts and prayers are obviously in IET. So there's that situation that's happening, and trying to be present also for other areas of the world. We have what's going on in Palestine. We have what's coming up in Cuba. I just learned of the floods that have hit Europe, Belgium. It's just like there's just so many things happening at the same time. It's sometimes you just can feel that your heart is pulled in multiple directions, right? And then how to show up for all of those different things. However, though, I still have joy because I had great conversations this morning around my own personal aspirations that are rooted in community work. So I feel very much grounded and anchored in that. And obviously excited to be on this call with y'all.
Yes, give thanks.
Mhm.
How's your heart, Angela?
Hmm. My heart is wide open. Um, and I say that with satisfaction in knowing that I haven't always been able to sit with my heart wide open amidst everything that both of you have just spoken about. I'm thinking about all of our cousins, in all of those places that you're talking about, that you spoke about. And my work right now is, how do I keep my heart open to receive all of this and to stay focused also on joy, on Black joy, on manifesting Black joy, on making sure that, I have something to do with, you know, helping Black children be happy. Because, if our Black children are happy, then our Black future is going to be all right. So I'm really
Say that
trying to
again.
I'm trying to stay focused on that, and at the same time stay open to what's going on, and really take care for myself and my own like immediate family, who I'm just pulling together some understandings, having just spent the last week with them about ways that they may need me as the matriarch of our family, and at the same time remembering that I got my own stuff to do. So it's just
Well,
a lot. So my heart is
word.
good. Basically, my heart is good. I'm just trying to stay balanced, stay calibrated.
Yes, calibrated and recalibrated, each month as we move through the moon cycle and the water cycle, the water that is our bodies, and allowing the flow, and that's what we have to keep doing. And it doesn't mean that it's not hard though. So, inside of that, we have these beautiful art practices. Some of us know and see ourselves as practitioners and as healers. And that is very much part of the conversation that I'm knowing that we're going to talk about today. That your work as artists who respond first, who show up first, and whose creative practices heal communities and save lives. That's where we're coming from in these conversations around Black imagination coming from Black women. So let me just start by reading some abbreviated bios for both of you,
Okay.
and we can even add to that. You can add to that after I read what I have, but you can also follow up on the MOAD website for today's show and read more about my friends here, my comrades, my sisters. Tasha Dougé, Bronx-based Haitian-infused artist, artivist, and cultural vigilante. I'm all about that vigilante life, yo. Her body of work activates conversations around women empowerment, health advocacy, sexual education, societal norms, identity, and Black community pride. Through conceptual art, teaching, and performance, Tasha devotedly strives to empower and to forge broad understanding of the contributions of Black people, declaring that her voice is the first tool within my art arsenal. Her work has been featured in the New York Times, Essence Magazine, Sugarcane Magazine. She is shown nationally at the RISD Museum, the Apollo Theater, and Rush Arts Gallery in Philadelphia. Internationally, Dougé has shown at the Hygiene Museum in Germany and is an alum of the Laundromat Project's Create Change Fellowship, the Urban Bush Women's Summer Leadership Institute, the Studio Museum of Harlem's Museum Education Program, the Caribbean Cultural Center of the African Diaspora's Institute Innovation Cultural Advocacy Fellowship, and the inaugural Digital Evolution Artist Retention Dear program. It's all things brilliant. Welcome, Tasha, to Blatant today and to the Museum of the African Diaspora for a talk. I'm so happy to have you here. I'm so happy to have you here. And we get to talk about how we met.
Yes.
In a minute. Also honored to welcome my beloved here today, Angela Wellman, award-winning musician, scholar, arts educator, photographer, and activist from Kansas City, Missouri.
There you go.
Practice is centered on designing music teaching and learning practices that nurture the development of wholeheartedness through courageously embracing vulnerability. This is important. We're going to talk about that. She is also the founder of the Oakland Public Conservatory of Music, which centers Blackness in the development of American musical culture and identity by providing quality, affordable music education and for underserved and under-resourced populations. Just a little bit on the litany here. Angela is a professional trombonist, has performed with Mackay Tyner, Big Band, Slide Hampton, Steve Turre, many other noted musicians, the recipient of multiple local and national awards, including the 2016 City of Oakland Cultural Key to the City, the 2018 Jazz Hero Award from the Jazz Journalists Association, the 2018 Arhoolie Award from the Arhoolie Foundation, and the 2020 Kathy M. Green Community Building Award from Upsurge, New York. She also is the recipient of a prestigious National Endowment for the Arts Jazz Study Fellowship, and I think just got another award like last week. Welcome, Angela Wellman, to Blatant, my friend, my dear one. It's lovely to have you here on the show.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
Do either of y'all want to add anything more to those brilliant bios? Anything?
Oh, man. So the Arts Leadership Award I just got, it'll be announced actually officially in October, I think, or next month, is Alameda County Arts Leadership Award. They choose 6 people throughout the county in various areas of the county doing various work. So I received the Leadership Award for the City of Oakland.
I love how Angela's like, that's just what I do. That's just another thing that I do. For me, I'm just like a self-proclaimed loudmouth and troublemaker, and I thoroughly enjoy that. So, you gotta shake things up sometimes in order for things to be different. So I actually relish in my abilities to disrupt some things.
Okay, well, let's lead into how I met you on some loudmouth game. Okay, so earlier this year, I don't know, earlier in 2021.
Was it? No, it was 2020. It was 2020.
See,
it was 2020.
Look, Afrotectopia. If y'all didn't know about Afrotectopia, you missed out on something. Maybe Tasha, you can talk a little bit about it. But we met as part of a group of maybe 75 Black creatives from all over the world who were dialed in for 30 days in this class. And there were some shenanigans that like popped off at different times. And so, when you're able to like sit with your people and you're with your people and we have to unpack and deal with our stuff, So Tasha and I were like DMing and, folks were carrying on. But it was so good. It was so good to like dial in with so many folks that we admire and whose art practice is so poignant and special to us.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
shout out to the creators and the folks who were like rounded up and in circle for Afrotectopia and introduced me to your practice.
I
And
appreciate that. I appreciate that. I
yeah,
mean, Angela met me the same way, causing trouble. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I'll talk about that. And what was that causing trouble situation?
I mean, I for myself, as someone who is vocal in both instances, it's like, you know, we come into these spaces under the notion of learning and gathering tools to make things different, you know. And what I would find sometimes is that, and this is not exclusive to this particular organization that you mentioned, but what I find is like, you know, it's all cool that we're going to learn, but then when things have to be activated and put into practice, right? Then it's like, we got to put things into practice. What? You know, and some people feel that they are immune to the new learning, right? And it's just like, no. You know, I found that in multitude of spaces that I've been in where I'm learning, you know, things tied to our lineage and how our kin, our past kin, our ancestors were defiant in a multitude of ways. And then they think just because you gave me access to the information that you are somehow immune to the fury. Right. And so what I find for me is that, listen, Black people, we not immune. Like, you know, what you will fail to realize is that you're actually aiding me, sharpening my tools to hold you just as accountable as anybody outside of this cultural experience. So, you know, that happens whether I'm in my own community or outside of the community. It's just like, we can't be talking about embodiment and Sylvia Wynter. And when we are in a space where Black people are living the thing that we're discussing and not have room for breath, baby, no ma'am.
All
We
right.
will pause.
Pause.
So yeah, she mentioned Sylvia Wynter. So we were, I guess you were like a
Second faculty.
second faculty, second faculty on this online course that we were taking. And yeah, as I do, I kind of try to, you know, I do what you do, Tasha. Not as much and as big and broad as you now, but you know, because I'm at another place in my life. I do it different ways, you know. But I feel you on that. Let's disrupt, which is why Sylvia Wynter is so important to both of us. And so we just were speaking about some things, and Tasha was like, "I know you were." I was like, "Who is this person? Listen to this." And you were like, "Who is this person?" And so then I learned later that you and Ashara knew each other, and that you and I met in two different places. I mean, we met and did not know that we were already connected. So yeah, that was, we were both like disturbing the privilege of some of the folks who were present in the class. Because when you get to choose, you know, you get to choose. But yeah, we're gonna hold you accountable. Yeah.
Let's talk about identity. Let's talk about, you know, Blackness, identity, and Black performativity, and how these aspects of American history have manifested in your practice, in both of your practices.
Mhm. You know, I'll start. It's always very interesting to me when I have the kind of moments that I'm having right now, which is, you know, part of my presentation today is my other art practice that I've been developing over several years, of photography. And you know, in preparation for the presentation, I went back and looked at some photos, some of the daguerreotypes from the late of the 1800s of enslaved African people, actually performing, and a type of performativity. They're staged in a photo holding a banjo, right? And then, you know, there was something about that was very disturbing because of many things of which I'll address later on. But this whole idea of performativity and how we show up is some of the work that I'm doing, in the institution that I've built to address and anti-blackness, to intervene in that in music education. Because I grew up, I went to traditional mainstream conservatories, and the curricula there are very, I don't need to say, but I shall, Eurocentric, right? And anti-black at the same time. And so there was a high degree of performativity that I had to embrace if I was going to survive, or even thrive, I should say. I could survive, but if I were going to thrive in that situation, I needed to figure out how to do that. It's a different type of code switching, right? And some of it I was able to do. Musical code switching. I'm doing like this because I play the trombone. Musical code switching. Sometimes I was better at it at others, and often I was also told that I couldn't do it at all because I play jazz. So
Yeah.
I had to go back and figure out, well, how am I going to perform whiteness? Because that's what I had to do. One of my mentors in my doctoral studies, she talks about performing whiteness in music, and so that's what I was having to do, was to perform whiteness, which is something that I absolutely refuse to do anymore, and decided to end that a long time ago. But to create space where people can perform who they are. If you feel like, just come on in here and be who you are, right?
Yeah.
And that is the beauty of of the music that our people have left us as well, because it frees people. Blackness is very freeing, and it creates that a type of, it gives people an opportunity. A lot of people try to perform blackness, that was the whole idea around the chalking up of the face, the minstrel days. They were trying to perform blackness. They were trying to perform this music that they felt like they couldn't do just because of all the other things. So there's that, and I'm also dealing with one other type of performativity, and it has to do with like intergenerational types of experiences, and see where I find myself in spaces with people who are like 20, 30 years younger than I am. And I'm like, where are all the people who are, and then I realize, well, age ain't nothing but a number, and throwing down ain't nothing but a thing. And so, so anyway, I'll stop right there, at the moment.
That was rich. That was a lot. I
That
mean,
was-
your slide in that this. I mean, Tasha, I want to hear your thoughts, but this edge between performativity and performance.
Yeah.
You both are performance artists, but here's this conversation and this inquiry and legacy of performativity that's also part of our work as artivists, as practitioners who are engaged in unpacking and reframing and reimagining liberation and abolition. So Tasha.
Absolutely. I feel like, a lot of people will say Black is not a monolith, but yet we treat Blackness through one lens, and that's through trauma, right? Or we find these polarizing things. Like, I find that when I was growing up in high school, I was in honors classes, accelerated classes, and I was a backwards Oreo, or something to that nature. So like being excellent was divorcing me from my Blackness in some particular type of way. I was like, but you ain't know no Black smart people, like having to prove my Blackness despite my dark skin. But then when people found out that I was Haitian, it was like, oh, well, you cute for a Haitian girl, you cute for a dark skinned girl. So having to constantly dance around or made to feel like I had to dance around these different iterations of what Blackness could be. What I have found now at the point where I am, and especially after what you brought up in the incident that we had to deal with, is this like, what traumas are we imposing on ourselves if we only equate Blackness to other traumatic situations, right? Well, you're not Black if you haven't been followed in a store. You're not Black if you haven't been this. You're not Black, when we, again, talking about Black as a monolith, but yet when the Blackness is not absolutely apparent aesthetically, then there's questions around validity. You get what I'm saying? So I'm at a place where do I equate Blackness to everything outside of trauma and in negative experiences, right? So really focusing more on not just the elements of joy, but like our ingenuity, like finding about all of the many inventions that Black people have contributed to the space that allow us to live the lives that we're striving to live. Right? So pulling these histories out to the forefront so that it doesn't have to always be juxtaposed with some type of trauma conversation. You know, what is Blackness beyond bruises? For me, are the questions that are coming up in my mind.
Let's talk about rage before you all present.
Woo!
Yeah. What you mad about? Angry Black women, Black women artists, daughters, sisters, friends, siblings, kindred.
Where do we start?
Where do we start?
I am mad that.
Okay, let's listen. You mad?
I'm mad at the fact that art is still not one of the pathways that are elevated among other professions, right? You know, coming from a Caribbean household, you know, I don't fault my parents. You know, they came here with aspirations, but with only one particular prescribed definition of success, right? If you're not a doctor, teacher, lawyer, these notable positions, then, you know, there's some question around what is your purpose here on this earth, right? Or it's not going to be as easy or whatever have you. And what I found that for me, my art is my purpose, is my calling. There's no, once I found that information, it was very clear. And it was just like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. But to still see people struggling around that. I remember one of my college friends, you know, she was studying drama as a major. I was like, where'd they do that at? I was like, oh, but she was white. And I was like, oh, you're white, you can do that. You know, it was still a phenomenon to hear people truly aspiring for something within the arts with the full support of family and friends, and that pouring into that's absolutely necessary for the work that we're trying to do, especially as first responders. So that makes me angry, that art is still, even though art literally is life and life is art, it's everywhere that we go, that it still doesn't get the respect that it's absolutely deserving of.
Word. What are you mad about, Angela?
I'm trying
to in a nutshell, because I want to.
I'm trying to pick something. You know, the other day I was.
Let me back up. Maybe it's not what to be mad about. Rage. What enrages you is really
okay. What enrages me?
What enrages you?
What enrages me that is when I go on. When I see, I just have to share this exact experience. So I'm looking on Facebook one day, and I'm the other day, Sunday, I guess it was, and I'm seeing this International Women's Trombone Choir Conference Choir, trombone choir that was created, and this person who put this post up, who's a very well-known woman trombonist in the world, and a leader and a supposed social justice for women in trombone, you know, person, puts these two images up. One of the International Women's Trombone Choir, like 25 years ago. And then meet today's trombone choir for the coming, you know, the next conference. And it was another 15 white women. And so I'm like, okay. I mean, honestly, I'm like, why did she call me and ask me if I wanted to be in that? Why did she call Robin Smith and ask her if she didn't want to be in that? And I can just go on down the line because I know that these women exist because I my life and the experiences that I've had paved the way for them in a way. I mean, I'm talking about the young players right now who are just like they're all over the place. There's still not enough of them, but and then so I go and I look on a page that's associated with one of these people, and the very first entry in their on their WordPress website says Black Lives Matter.
Oh,
And so then I scroll down, and there is not one black face of a. I'm like, okay, so right here is where I'm going to see some black women. Here's somebody who gets it, and it was a black. It was a white woman trombonist known, and Black Lives Matter, and I believe this and I believe that, and you know the thing. And so I'm just scrolling. I'm like, okay, I just know I'm gonna see Robin, because Robin Smith. If you all don't know who she is, listeners, everyone, Robin Smith, Robyn. Please check this sister out. She's an amazing trombonist. I just knew I was at least going to see her on this page, and I still didn't. But yet, Black Lives Matter. So that's what enrages me. Still is, or it sort of ties back to what we were talking about earlier, Tasha.
Performance.
In that class, people who get to choose and this sort of thing. It's like I'm sick of that. It's like I'm sick of that type of jumping on that liberal bandwagon for a minute, as if that's going to make a difference in how you show up and how you are, and how people think about you. That this is a different world now. So I wanted to send her an inbox and tell her she needed to take that down off her page, but then that's another whole thing. I can't be trying to fix these people. So it's just like I'm just having a lot of rage that I even have to, that this is even a thing.
Yeah.
That's even a thing.
it's a thing.
Yeah.
Whew, let's take a breath.
For sure.
A deep
For
one.
sure.
A deep one. Let's all right, we have an hour to dial in.
Mhm.
Angela, you want to get ready to get your presentation together and cue it up for us, and Elizabeth will be ready when you tell us to be ready.
Okay.
Thank you for that. And before we transition into that, do you have any other thoughts? Anything you'd like to add, or pinpoint, Tasha?
I mean, there are just so many things to be enraged about. Enraged about how Black women are still sexually accosted when they say no. I mean, they are, when they tell somebody else no. I get enraged. We talk about when we were in Fractal Fight, just talking about how technology doesn't see us either. Like when I'm trying to put a post, I'm trying to post this event tonight, and I'm looking for gifs and imagery that represent us, and I'm just like smiling. There's a litany of white, brown, not brown, white, red, all these other images, but for me to look for a Black girl that represents me, I have to specifically say Black girl, and then the options dwindle down to this much. So there are many spaces where I can find myself enraged, but I allow myself to flow through those moments and get to spaces where I can be fully present with beautiful women like y'all.
Well, this is a place where we calling out the Black girls calling on each other, choosing ourselves, and showing up for ourselves in all of the ways in which we are. So Dr. Wellman, take it away. You have the floor.
Yeah. So practices. I have been very much involved in photography, though not as a space of like showing and considering that as like a something that I do, but it is something that I very much do, and that I've learned to do over the last decade or so, and have been told that you got a little bit of an eye. I might have an eye that is really not as important to me as the experience of looking through that and going into another world and being able to really like just turn off for a second and exist in other worlds, so in another universe. So I wanted to share. I was like, what shall I do? I've been a musician, a trombonist since I was 11 years old. That's what I've done all my life. That's what I continue to do. What else do I want to do today? And I wanted to share this aspect of my artistry. And it is a type of first respond artist as first responder, in that it is, I'm healing myself when every time I pick up my camera or I go out on a walk to shoot. So those are the images that are that I'm going to share today. But also, I just wanted to say that there's this intersection of the images with my life work, which is to, as I said earlier, to lift up Blackness in music, and particularly in music education. And so through the research and my study and my writings, I've come to understand a few things, and I'd like to just read that before we start the next part of my presentation. Since the arrival of enslaved Africans, the Black experience has been central to the development of the musical culture and identity throughout continental North and South America and the Caribbean. Music has been and is a vehicle through which our heritage and our history and our culture is enshrined and transmitted. Consider Congo Square, the ring shout, field hollers, chain gangs, Sea Island stick pounding, plantation cakewalk, gourd banjo strummings, high-stepping marching bands, New Orleans brass bands and second lines, musical signifying of jazz improvisations, to bebop, hip hop, and yet to hop created forms of Black musical expressions. The cipher of Black music has been and is a space for ritualizing, nurturing, protecting, and articulating Blackness in a place where we were never meant to thrive. We can start now. Yemaya olodo, olodo yemaya. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll show you that banjo that you saw in the picture, in the photos, is this banjo here that I made. And the title of that, though that series is A Well of Souls. There was a gentleman by the name of Scott Didlake who who used to make these gourd banjos. This gourd banjo is somewhat a replica of what may have been seen on the plantation. And really, the banjo, for those of you who do not know, was played by African only in black hands by enslaved African folk for nearly 200 years before a white person really took it and started learning and playing and the music from the plantations. So this banjo is a banjo that I had down at it was at Ashara, is at your gallery, and it was Andrew's show.
Andrew Wilson's
Andrew,
show.
yeah,
His cyanotype exhibition.
yeah, the cyanotypes. And so I was moved by the cyanotypes when I put those pieces together, thinking about the daguerreotypes and how, you know, folks were just were posing for shots. They didn't play this instrument. So that last part of that presentation speaks to the reclamation of the banjo. And so I asked each person whose image I captured to hold the banjo as if, yeah, this is mine. You know, this is my instrument, right? And I'm holding this intentionally. I'm not just posing for some white photographer with, you know, for some daguerreotype that he's going to put on a postcard and sign, and that my name isn't even going to be part of, right? So that was the
word. Can you say that word? Daguerreotype. What is the word?
I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but it's daguerreotype, I guess. I'm not even sure how to spell it. You know, Daguerreotype. I say daguerreotype. Daguerreotype. I'm not exactly.
And what is it exactly?
It's a type of photography. It's a style of those black and white images that we would see with like those hues on it, from the early days of photography when they put the head over the cover.
Elizabeth has put the word into the chat for those.
Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was that. We see those early black and white photography, very kind of rough looking, you know, not clean like digital like we have it today. Those types of photos. I was trying to emulate that style in those, and of course the first couple of images are Yemaya sitting at the ocean, honoring that her presence and just basically giving thanks for water and what water does for us. And then we cleanse, and so the washing of the hands, that's an image I took of actually those are your hands, Ashara, and what's her name, the vocalist in South Africa. Mm-hmm. And washing of the hands and the cleansing of one another and holding one another in the water. So that seemed to move very smoothly for me into then the well of souls, meaning this is the well. And Scott Didlake said, the white folks who don't understand when they pick up the banjo, they got to understand that they're picking up a well of souls. And inside of this banjo are the stories and the tales of every African person who was ever enslaved. And so that this banjo is the creation and that of those enslaved African folk that holds the story, it holds the history. And just like those last few photos in the presentation, there's a sense of conflict. In the first one, it shows them reaching and you know, grabbing and it's blurred and
Yes.
and then they finally come to some sort of sense of like, oh, wait a minute, let's listen. There's a well of souls. this is a well of souls. Let's listen and understand. And then finally, we come to an acceptance. Oh, and then there's rest. So this tension, tension, tension. And then when you learn where you came from and you learn what's yours, that this banjo is black. It's create. It did not come from Africa, yet it presented itself in the memory of home, in the memory of Africa. We didn't have the same wood, the same types of animals to make the strings or any of that, but this instrument showed up
Yes.
on the plantations of the Caribbean, um, through the lives and spirits and memory of those enslaved Africans, and thus the banjo was created. So every time I would like to invite everyone to consider, when we say, "Oh, the banjo comes from Africa," then we are totally erasing an experience of enslaved African people who actually created this particular instrument, which is, next to the original people, the First Nation people. This banjo is the first sort of technological piece of wonder created, as far as a musical instrument goes, in what we call the United States, the North and South America, the banjo. I mean, and it is a technology, right? That was created by enslaved African people.
And a technology that is representative of the archive, as you're saying, the story.
Exactly.
And the intersection, obviously, of the visual, culture and the stories that we tell with our eyes, and then you bring the song to it.
Right.
So
Yes.
that's this conversation on the creative and the imagination of Black women creatives, that these conversations at Blatant are not singularly visual artists, not singularly sculptors or painters or folks who draw, but people who also write, who orate, who educate, and who play music and who sing. So thank you for that
Thank
musical
you.
offering as well, to hear both the banjo and the trombone today, because
So
we
I just
don't get to see Black women playing either of those instruments often.
Exactly.
That doesn't happen often. So thank you for that.
or a Black woman who plays both of them.
Right. Right. And all of the rest of the instruments that are behind you as well. So I want to invite folks who are in the chat to put questions or comments or reflections into the chat as well, and for you all to, and we'll read questions if folks have questions too. Woo! All right.
I just wanted to just say one thing about the song that I played.
Okay.
I call it proto funk. Right? Now listen, this song is at least from 1848, something like that. It was written down in Briggs' Banjo book. He went around and learned all of these songs on the plantations, and then notated them. He learned all these songs from these Black folks, and notated them. The Briggs Banjo, I don't know, primer or something like that. And this one, to me, when I heard it, I'm like, this is so Black. It was so funky. You could hear like the pre-blues in there, right?
Yeah.
And the title of it is entitled "Engine Rubber Overcoat." Now, engine, like that, we don't want to say that, right? But then as I begin to understand and read a little bit more into the history of rubber and where this song may have come from, rubber was accidentally discovered. It was in what's his name, Goodyear, his laboratory. He spilled something over, and one chemical mixed with another, and with the cold, he noticed that, oh, look at this, and when it dried, it was rubbery. And so he recreated. This is one story that I heard. He recreated that chemical reaction and began kind of like painting it on boots and on coats to create a raincoat so it dried. And this song, you know, this I'm just going to create I created a story for this, like, so how did a Black person come to create this song and name it that, right? And so, you know, they had been given an overcoat to get on the I don't know, the wagon to take some straw down to the next farmhouse or something.
Okay.
And
Okay.
and they gave him a rubber overcoat, you know, but it's engine rubber. Like, it was the Indian Rubber Company that first made, you know, raincoats, that first made rubber. And so, you know, so the song I'm saying was created from that experience. So there's some truth to it, and then I'm creating some fiction around it.
That's how you tell a story. That's what
Rubber overcoat.
You gotta add a piece of lie to
Yeah.
it, and then you pass
Oh
the story.
God, no more lies, no more lies.
No
No more
lies.
lies, no more lies.
Anyway, you know. Tasha,
Yeah.
you ready? I'm excited to.
I'm ready to go. I was taking
Ready to
in all
go?
the information. You know, there's never enough time to just talk about all of the things that we bring forth, especially when we have multiple hats. But I will do my best to give y'all tidbits of what I have been doing since my
We're here
artistry
for it.
started.
We're here for it. Come on, Black girl. Let's go.
I was ready. All right. So what you're looking at is the very first flyer from my exhibition where I debuted in October 2015. Really briefly, I was just fed up with a lot of the red tape that was happening in the nonprofit that I was working at. And more so, I was enraged at how many women's voices had been silenced. And so this exhibition came forth as a way to amplify a lot of voices of women related to sexual health, identity, and so forth. And so one of the pieces that I wanted to offer as a testament to what I made was called The Beauty Within. And that person that I was working with, you know, I was working in sexual health, and she had never seen her inside, because I had an amazing experience with my OBGYN eons ago, where I was actually able to see my insides during the course of my appointment, right? And knowing that that was the only time that happened, but then it never happened again. And so that always stayed with me. And I wondered, okay, how then could we be talking about prevention, but yet not know or be familiarized with what lies within us? So in this piece, The Beauty Within, my sister's a physician. We had an opportunity for the woman who was with us, who offered to be a part of this project, to be one with herself. You know, I got an endoscope, my sister inserted a speculum, and she was able to be one with herself from the inside out. After that, I gave her another speculum in which she designed herself as a way to reclaim that process and her own body in a way that she hadn't before. In the next slide, you'll see that she wrote a note to me and to others to kind of like be a little bit more introspective around what does it mean to care for one's body and to be in tune and in touch with the body. I wanted to show that, to also illustrate that I am in conversation, not only with the audience that sees my work, but with the participants that are a part of the things that I bring to fruition. In the next slide, another piece that I did was Invisible. And, you know, we brought up a lot of issues earlier today around, like, there's just so much to think about. And sometimes, whether consciously or not consciously, we check out, right? But with this piece, you know, using things that are very nostalgic, like viewfinders. I was born in 1981. So, you know, I remember the clicks all day long, using these objects that bring joy and bring all these memories as entry points into conversations that have been very taboo. And what I love about this particular piece is that the aesthetic, feels benign on the outside. However, the topics that are addressed on the inside are very much guttural, so to speak. The next slide, you will see these 3 masks, and this piece was titled, "This is Blackface." And what I realized in the first exhibition that, I had a fairly good response. I have Black people come in, but it wasn't to the community particularly that I wanted to speak to, right? And using repurposed materials, I had come across these white masks, for those who are familiar with the Mighty Ducks, or Sleep No More masks. I came across those. I'm like, oh my God, these are so menacing. And it's just like, how do I transform these white masks and make them beautiful? And what came up for me was our Black experience. So many times we're being told that we are less than, we are this, we are that. So I transformed those masks in ways that speak to our experience. So the mask that's bejeweled speaks to coal, and that we as Black people are an energy source. We are fuel for many of things on this plane, and that just like coal, under pressure, heat, and time, we produce something that is coveted as well as extremely valuable, which is the diamond. So this is a point where I then remind us of that. And the other mask on the side, using parts of leather as a way to speak to our melanin, our skin, as our armor, connecting us to a legacy of our ancestors. The note that you will see in the next slide, again, what are people feeling when they see my work? And in this note, the observer, the person that came to bear witness, was just basically speaking to how the work that I was creating was forcing them to do the introspection, take out what they thought they've learned, investigate that, and then make decisions around what they want to then keep. And the way she spoke to it about, like, really just taking a spoon out and like having this very visceral, guttural response, I found to be an absolute honor and a privilege to be able to be forcing people to investigate some of the things that they've thought about for so long. So I thought that that was a huge compliment. There was a time in Philly that, I was working with 2 photographers, Jess and Oliver Tingling. They're a husband and wife duo. And we were just taking these shots. We end up being able to showcase a series called A Bed for Justice at the Color Girls Museum in Philly. And I had not seen any of the treatments. I had no conversation around that. And someone came to me and they were like, there seems to be a presence in your work, a deity of some sort. And I was like, huh? And we looked closer, and for that, in fact, there is something there for what my eyes see. And I was like, wow, that for me became the manifestation of my purpose spirit. To see the spirit that grounds me and is attached to my hands as I lay hands on my work felt very, very profound and affirming. So I wanted to bring this into my presentation to show that my art practice is not just about manifesting, it's very much tied to spirituality as well as ancestral connection. After that, I think it was like maybe 2 years later, I was just feeling all the feels, and ancestors were telling me that we gotta talk about justice. And so I hightailed my ass in front of the New York Times building, right? And we could just show a short clip.
Hello, my name is Justice. On July 22nd, 2016, my mother gave birth to me. I am a symbol of a forgotten story, a story rarely told of this country, a place many of us call home.
So lo and behold, I'm out here nervous as heck, having a flag that speaks to the Black contributions to this land in the middle of Times Square was definitely nerve-wracking. but I felt called to do it. And then little did I know, 2 months later, I would have an article.
Hello.
And I, again, bring this up to not really elevate this publication in itself, because I'm super proud of other spaces that have spoken about my work. But it was just for me a testament, like when you have conviction to what you are supposed to be doing, these things will come your way when you least expect them. So I use the grading technique not only with justice, but I created this hashtag, and the piece was called More Than a Hashtag. As Ashara was talking about, like what enrages us, I was starting to become absolutely enraged by all of the Black and brown names that were following the hashtag. Like I said, I was born in 1981. So this symbol used to just mean like, what's the phone number for your parents to call when you didn't do well in school? You know what I'm saying? It was like, what's your home phone number? But for it now to be something that quantifies what is trending, I found this to be quite enraging that so many Black and brown names were following that, right? And it was just too much. And I found that it was triggering and re-traumatizing. So in this piece, there is a call for us to think of the person in their wholeness, right? And think about them and the fractures and the fragments that are left behind with state-sanctioned violence, and also a call to action to illuminate the names of the assailants as opposed to just those who have been taken away far too early. So again, as my practice is growing, my practice layers on top of other pieces that I've made. So in this next video, I did a piece called I Pledge Allegiance, and we'll just do maybe about 2 minutes, because I would love people to ask us questions of this performance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. No, I will not pledge allegiance when its origins are founded on the basis of brainwashing. Young, unsuspecting, unconsenting minds of children, especially immigrant children, were infested with your patriotism, indoctrinated, mandated by way of your public school system. I will not pledge allegiance when its origins are tied to an event that would commemorate the arrival of Christopher Columbus to the Americas. While you celebrate colonialism, I know it to be a euphemism for conquest, deception, lies, theft, death, rape, attempted genocide, alongside the sale, exploitation, and dehumanization of Black, brown, and indigenous bodies. No, I will not pledge allegiance to a country whose policing practices are rooted and still resemble slave patrols. I will not pledge allegiance when your own government has found it to be dogmatic and atheistic. And we can stop there. Yeah, I'll let that ruminate a little bit for people. And so whatever questions come up, I can address those afterwards. But I had stopped saying the Pledge of Allegiance eons ago. So yeah, we can talk about it a little bit. This piece is a still from a new work that I just did a couple of months ago through Art in Odd Places. This piece is titled New Normal. And in this work, I was just talking about wanting to address how this pull and push to go back to the default really doesn't consider how the defaults and what normal, the impact of normal did prior to, right? Normal didn't serve us back then, and if a damn sure ain't gonna serve us now. So there's a little short clip of me out on 14th Street.
For the purposes of this work, the phrase invites another race. 2. The United States is fundamentally racist or sexist. 3. An individual, by virtue of his or her race or sex, is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously. 4. An individual should be discriminated against or receive adverse treatment solely or partly because of his or her race.
I think we're having some technical difficulties, so I guess we could stop the video. Can y'all hear me okay? Can y'all hear me okay? Okay, I think it was just with the audio. I'm coming towards the end. Yes, so in this work, COVID hit, and I was asked to create some work despite me wanting to do so in order to oblige the contract, right? So what I decided to do is create a piece titled The Broken Hands of Time, and wanting to address how capitalism has been used, time has been used to propel the desires of capitalism. So this is just a piece of the process video. And then in the next clip, you'll just see the piece in its entirety, how just framing what the broken hands of time have done for us on one side when we think about capitalism and the way work has and labor has been structured. And then on the other side, what would it mean to think beyond these interpretations of time, but grounded in our own understanding of a cyclical way of dealing with time. So. And as you can see, one whole portion of the lantern turned into a clock. 3/4 have been covered in currency. And, wanting to emphasize the starkness, the stark contrast of the way that time is on our bodies and our experiences, and the warmth of what time could be if we were able to prioritize the things that matter to us most. And then lastly, we just come to the joy for me, working with children. This piece I created is called I Am Lady Liberty, and I stand for. And in this work, I was really just thinking about one, uplifting the myth that allegedly the original Statue of Liberty was a Black woman, but also wanting to insert art into the conversation around monuments and what does it mean to be a living monument. And having the utmost privilege to encounter Ava, she beautifully stated that she was Lady Liberty and she wished for people to stop bullying and harming Black people. So to see her really being moved and activated in this particular work definitely warmed my spirit. And then you'll see in the next image another program that I'm doing where that workshop was working with the Lewis Latimer Home. And the project was called Illuminating Juneteenth, and honoring how Lewis Latimer was the inventor that created the carbon filament that allows us to have all the light that we have, and using elements of the Juneteenth flag to bring forth those histories to the people, the intergenerational group that was present that day. So I want to end with a piece, a picture of me as this cultural vigilante and working in Black space, and wanting to continue to cultivate spaces where we can show up in our fullness. And this was a full circle moment for me because I was asked to bring into the space an ideology that I came up with called Black Rooting, in which, I was very clear that we wanted to center all things Black, especially Black women, not only into American history, but global history. And that is my presentation. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for both of you, just rooting us in this history and really inside of your own imaginations that are vibrant, and bringing to us what we know is essential. I remember seeing in the cut up pieces in your collage, I am essential in there. That's knowing that our work as creatives, as artists, as Black women artists and Black women is essential, and that we have to continue to create spaces to give to ourselves first and to give from that overflow into the community. As we're going to be wrapping up soon, I guess I want to ask a question about what is urgent for you in this moment. Both of you have this love of working with children and bringing joy to children. But, as we're entering this, we're in the midst of this summer season. In California, it is fire season. On other parts of this continent, the rain is coming down, the water is coming down. We're dealing with the wind, the climate injustice, the climate catastrophe we are inside of, and how that also gets brought forward in the bodies of the divine feminine and bodies of women. So these conversations on the climate and the environment are laid on top of the offerings I believe that artists are offering into community as well. So what feels urgent for you? And Angela, I'd like you to start, and just give us, it's a brief kind of one breath response, but in a breath, what is now for you? What is the Afro now for you?
I was very moved by the images of the children in the school during the Pledge of Allegiance, and I have this urgency to take back our children, take them out of the mainstream education. So, particularly, you mentioned California, with at least Northern California here, where we are, the Bay Area, with the housing industry, it being very difficult for folks to find homes that they can be comfortable in with their families. And so there's a sense of urgency around place and home place and creating home places for Black people to be, that we're losing those spaces because folks are moving out of the Bay Area, but there's still folks here, so there's a sense of urgency for me to rescue our children from these schools, and then to create spaces for the folks who are here, to go and just really have kind of like rich, robust, deep experiences and connections with one another, because I feel a sense of things just feel to me to be diminishing, like there's a diminishment of opportunities. So just to create Black space, it's so important to have Black space wherever we can.
That's right. Thank you. What's feeling urgent for you in the Afro Now, Tasha?
What feels urgent for me is truth telling, right? When Angela was talking about the well of souls, our history has been whitewashed for far too long, right? As I talked about the program Illuminating Juneteenth, a lot of people talking about Juneteenth being Emancipation Day. Well, in actuality, there are 2 states that were not emancipated at that time. And in actuality, Juneteenth is really a late text message. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was 2.5 years motherfucking late. You get me? So I had to reconcile with, why am I celebrating this holiday? But I had to take myself out of this position, right? And put myself in the position of ancestors and be like, they're telling me that tomorrow's gonna be better, so I'm gonna celebrate that. And that's the only thing that gives me solace. But what is urgent for me is telling full truths, right? We can't talk about Juneteenth being an Emancipation Day when kinfolk were still under the same experience. And also when you read the actual proclamation on Juneteenth, which really set them up to fucking fail anyway, right? It was like, yeah, you're not enslaved, but we're gonna just move over to the sharecropping situation, which so what's urgent for me is not to parade around and honor our ancestors' lived emotional experiences, but also call a spade, right? That's what's urgent for me, because then I could come at you at your neck in a way that you may not be expecting.
Mm-hmm. I feeling that, all of that. So as we're going to wrap up here, I have a couple of announcements, and then I have like a last question for you all. That's really around joy. But I want to just turn my attention a bit here just to the chat. Juneteenth is even deeper than that. Freedom.be, Juneteenth is even deeper than that. Freedom only became a real possibility when Granger showed up with an army to enforce it. Rhonda is putting some truth in here into the chat.
That's my niece, by the way.
Okay.
Hey, niece. Yeah, we can talk about it, because again, we get like these very surface conversations, but it was very nuanced. And we need to talk about those nuances when we're talking about liberation.
We are talking about liberation and abolition, and how that shows up in our practices. And I want to talk about what it means to show up for ourselves and to show up for institutions such as the Museum of the African Diaspora. I know that these blatant conversations have been going on for a year. Right now, there is a printed accompanied piece of ephemera that also goes with these conversations. And the 2nd edition is going to come out next month, Black August edition. But last year's edition. There are a few left in the Moad bookstore. You can go on to moadsf.org and search in the bookstore for Blatant if you want to pick up one of the last couple of printed editions, limited edition zine. And other opportunities to support Black artists, Black makers, and institutions as the museum. You can become a member, you can donate. Right now, you can text a donation to 56512 and put in MOAD SF, MOADSF, donate, or you can hold your phone up even to the screen right now and the QR code will take you.
Look at technology.
Technology, come on, all these things. And but you know, it's important that we also talk about financially supporting our institutions, that we create institutions and that we financially support them, and that this, you know, museums are not neutral. MOAD is not a neutral museum either, but it is unapologetically Black and beautiful all day. And I'm really honored to be a curator, you know, moderating a forum with them for these past 12 months. And over the years, my relationship to the museum has grown. And I expect that we will continue to have more opportunities to talk about Black space here. And with that, continue to have these blatant conversations with Black women creatives on art, joy, and rage. And so we're gonna go to every other month. We're gonna like expand the conversation because you know what? MOAD's gonna open back up October 21st, I believe. And so we're gonna have, I don't know if that means that Blatant will become something that happens in the museum and on the screen, but will definitely continue being on the screen. But I wanna invite you all to join the newsletter so that you can find out what's next for Blatant, which will be showing up again September 21st. And so, you know, you're gonna have to sign up on the newsletter to find out who's on deck next. And, you know, we'll take a bit off, we'll come back. And as a reminder, you can always rewatch all of the past episodes of Blatant on MOAD's YouTube page. You just go to YouTube, put in MOAD, and you'll see all of the amazing and robust online programming that has really burst forward in the last year and will continue to be there. So I just want to encourage you to do that. And I want to thank our sponsors for Artists as First Responder. We're an organization and a platform being supported by the Girls and Women of Color Collaborative, the African American Art and Culture Complex, the Akanadi Foundation, the San Francisco Foundation, the Wakanda Dream Lab in Oakland, the Women's Foundation of California, the Walter and Elise Haas Fund, and Towel Rising. And that said, here's my last question for you all. It is, when is the last time you experienced blatant joy?
Oh, okay. So, all right, I can go for this one. I experienced blatant joy, actually, not the weekend that just passed, but the previous weekend. I was asked to do an impromptu facilitation during a womb wellness program because we were talking about womb wellness and health. And we were also talking about this book called Pussy Prayers by Black Girl Bliss, right? And because I had read Pussy Prayers in advance, because I had the book already, Darlene, who is the founder of Adane Bookshop, had asked me to do some facilitation. And one of the things that brought me blatant joy was being able to cultivate a space where the Black women felt comfortable enough to even say the word pussy, right? To reclaim that they are taking this journey to become more connected to their bodies, because pleasure is liberatory, right? You know, when you think about Audre Lorde's uses of the erotic, you know, to be able to help propel women through that process. And, you know, at one point, just like, say pussy, just say pussy, right?
Pussy, say it together. Pussy, 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 wet ass pussy, wet ass
put
pussy.
an annotation on it, pussy, you know, put a song to it, you know, and just really see the walls start to crumble down, because I facilitate workshops around pleasure and all that stuff too. But that's one of the things that have been suppressed for Black women for far too long. generations beyond my own even comprehension. So that brought me extreme blatant joy to be in that moment with those women.
That makes me happy.
Yeah.
Angela?
Mine is just pretty basic. We have this place, the Black Cultural Zone, created this space, Liberation Park, and they built an outdoor skating rink, so roller skating. And so when I saw when I saw the first videos of folks out there skating, out in the open, there's just out in the broad open, daylight out there just skating. Now, nothing brings me greater joy than to watch Black folks roller skating, not rollerblading, but roller skating on four wheels and all of that. I was like, look at this. They're having so much fun. You see what I'm talking about? That right there. It's just like, that was just, I watched that video a few times. It just made me just so happy, and especially in a time like of gentrification, when we're losing access to actual literal brick and mortar. And the Black Cultural Zone and CJ, Carolyn Johnson, they're out there like, oh no, hell no, we're gonna take up space and place and created for us. And they actually, she got like turf out there that you would find on the football field, really nice turf. So Black folks are out there laying around, kids are playing, and they built a dang wooden roller rink right in the middle of this thing. I was just like, wow. So
I'm coming.
Yeah, you gotta come. You gotta come.
Yeah. Liberation Park is in East Oakland, and the Black Cultural Zone is a community development corporation, and the leader and the facilitators and just the partners are just so brilliant with allowing kind of the inner child to like take over and lead the programming. So it is all about pleasure and joy.
It's like where Black folks go to play. All kinds of
pleasure and play,
babies, everybody.
Yeah. In East Oakland, in the part of the neighborhood where y'all think that people aren't in the midst of their bliss, but they are.
Yes, absolutely.
That bliss is alive and well in East Oakland, in Oakland, whatever. Anyway, it's been my joy to spend a little bit of time with you all today. I want to make sure folks follow you on your socials. What's your socials?
Well, mine, Wellman Angela, Instagram, and my school is Mix OPC, Oakland Public Conservatory, Mix OPC on Instagram. That is
okay.
And mine is Conversations _ so CONBHERSATIONS _ on Instagram.
Yeah. Thank you. Gratitude and love.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashara, for the invitation.
For sure.
Rest, y'all.
I hope you get some rest and you have many more days of laughter inside of your practice and your offerings to us and community. Much love to you and continued success, as you move through your work in healing us and saving yourself. Yeah. So thank you all for being with us on Blatant. Thank you, Museum of the African Diaspora, and all of the partners who are supporting the museum, the partners who are supporting Artists as First Responder. And my name is Ashara Ekundayo. It's been wonderful to have your time with us today. Peace.
Thank y'all. Peace.